the wonder is, what guidance can you give to humanity at this time in history?
From which perspective would you like us to guide it?
Well, how about the situation in the Ukraine?
As to that, for humanity to recognize that the situation in the Ukraine, along with the situation in Israel and the Gaza Strip, is just a symptom of basically the fear that humanity is experiencing right now. It's a fear that of insufficiency. It's a fear of not being good enough. And so everyone is trying to establish themselves into their own situation as to my space is good enough. And they're basically drawing the lines based on religion and race once again. Unfortunately, if they continue on this path, what is going to happen is a repetition of the historical events and movements that have taken place in the last century. You will find yourselves in a war that will surpass all previous wars. And not in the sense of necessarily impact. Well, yes, impact. It won't be man, human against human. It'll be human against machines, human against mass destruction. So it won't be one person killing one person. It'll be one person being able to, as a result of their technology, able to kill thousands.
Oh, no.
So the resultant will be that humanity will find itself in such a war that billions will begin to be killed. Not millions, but it'll move into the billions. So the resultant is that though humanity would say that in the past, all wars, there has been the war that ended all wars, etc., etc. The Second World War was worse than the first, etc., etc. We assure you that if humanity does not begin to recognize the necessity to find common ground that goes beyond the intransigence of race and religion, then basically humanity will move to war. And this is coming. So the key here is to realize that all of these little skirmishes that are going on right now is just a symptom of the bigger picture. And for humanity, the politicians within the different countries, for example, Russia, and the European Union, and the United States, and Canada as well, for that matter, and everyone is pushing each other to the brink of war. And someone has to decide that this is not the path on which you want to go. If you continue on this journey, dear friends, you will harm yourselves almost irreparably. If you thought that the last 60, 70 years was necessary to overcome the effects of the Second World War, the next war will take hundreds of years to overcome. So it is up to humanity now to realize that there is a necessity, even greater than there ever has been, to find a commonality, to find the brotherhood, if you want to call it that, to find that which allows you to set aside all the judgments of another person's fears and struggles and realize that you do not need war as a tool to settle your differences. Guns, bombs, other technologies, none of those things resolve the differences. What they do is they force humanity to set aside the differences in the face of greater self-destruction. The Second World War did not resolve the issues. It simply forced humanity to acknowledge that it was on the brink of self-destruction. Don't make the mistake as a human race to move towards this again, for you will then find yourselves unable to overcome it as easily and quickly as you have. And those of you who think that war is a good precursor to economic growth, we assure you, dear friends, that that is a fallacy. It is an illusion that you have bought in order to validate your own greed and desire for greater wealth. It has nothing to do with the economic growth. Economic growth comes from a state of sufficiency, a state where the individuals, the people themselves, feel secure and safe. The reason you're struggling as a world right now to try to get out of your previous recession that has taken place, the previous downturns in the economy, is because there is such a fear amongst people. There is no stability. There is no sense of continuity here. And so that's why the economic of the world is still struggling. And of course, when that happens, everybody looks to war as a way of resolving their issues. I'm going to beat you up because I'm more afraid than you are, etc., etc. Do not make this mistake, dear world. If you do this, you will find yourselves in a greater disarray than you ever have in the past. Humanity and the people, and you, dear Paul, and people like you, you can begin to say to people, stop the war, stop the fear-mongering, stop trying to take this world to the brink of another disaster. Do you see?